As you'll see, this discussion is so timely as we've opened this up to all of our corporate and contacts as well as friends. I'm really proud to be involved in this organization, as is at the forefront of social and emotional support for everyone impacted by cancer, including patients, survivors, families, caregivers, and the bereaved. And they do this in a manner where the person is in their personal journey and, as witnessed by this discussion, no matter where they live or work. As the conversation progresses, should you have any questions, please enter them in the chat box. We'll take a few minutes at the end of the discussion to allow the group to answer any of your questions. And before I turn it over to Crossroads for Hope Program Director, Katherine Schaible, I wanted to introduce our panelists today. Debbie Lynch is an executive partner in the Chief Human Resource Officer practice at Gartner, providing actionable insights and guidance and tools that enable faster, smarter decisions and stronger performance on an organization's most critical priorities. Debbie is also a board member at Crossroads for Hope, and she's been instrumental in our board development committee. Julie is a longtime friend and member of our organization and has become an advocate for employees dealing with cancer and a cancer diagnosis. She's a 3-time cancer survivor who has worked in healthcare for over 30 years. And Katherine, why don't I go ahead and turn it over to you? Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and good morning to everyone on the call. I'm just going to take a couple minutes to frame this discussion. As Brian mentioned, my name is Katherine Schaible. I'm the program director with Crossroads for Hope, and I'm also a licensed social worker. I've been working with Crossroads for Hope for nearly 7 years now, and really focusing on the psychosocial and emotional needs that anyone impacted by cancer has in their lives. And every time I'm called to have a good discussion like this, I begin reflecting on the myriad of experiences really that people on the cancer journey have shared with me. And one common theme, no matter who it is who I speak to, is this stigma around cancer and the need to and benefit of normalizing the conversation in areas that are removed from the medical and clinical world, in places and spaces and with people that folks are living and breathing and working in their daily lives. So with that, I thought I'd just frame this discussion with a reminder of how I like to define cancer survivorship, being that the National Coalition of Cancer Survivorship defines a survivor as anyone who is diagnosed from the point of diagnosis through the rest of his or her life. And the reason why that's important today is because with the advances in medical treatments and specialized therapies, immunotherapies, targeted treatments, clinical trials, and the like, patients now are living longer and more fruitful lives during and after cancer. And so these advancements in treatment are turning what once used to be incurable diseases into more chronic conditions that are manageable and treatable. And so from a patient's perspective in the workplace, we know that employment is the #1 concern that comes up when a person's diagnosed. For a number of different reasons, we're going to hear from Julie in just a moment from her perspective on that. But, you know, I think what's most important is just recognizing that, especially in today's corporate America, work is intimately tied to a patient's personal identity and sense of pride and purpose. And so with that, I want to hand it over to Debbie to talk to us, especially for the HR professionals and employers on the call. You know, Debbie, what is it about this topic that is so hot right now, especially in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Great. Thanks, Katherine. You know, I really do see a lot. I work with heads of HR all the time. And, you know, through COVID, there's been a real shift, you know, and we've all felt it. We've all been remote work. We're all doing meetings as we are today with staring at the screen. It's been isolating. And we've really seen a shift with employees. Everybody's heard the term, the Great Resignation. Everybody's, you know, deciding what they want for themselves. They're starting to take stock and saying work is not the end all be all. I have a life. And as we know, the last couple of years, there's just been disruption after disruption layered upon us with COVID, with now the war in the Ukraine, with, then layer on top of that, a cancer patient is dealing with all their own personal issues on top of all the societal issues that are hitting us. There's a Harvard Business Review article that two of my colleagues, Brian Kropp and Emily Rose McCrae, wrote just recently, and they talk about the trends for 2022, 11 top trends that they're seeing. And number 8 in that is wellness. And wellness is just becoming more and more important for employers to look at. And I know, many of you that work in HR, you're feeling this, that there's so much, but, what do you do? You're saying we spend so much money on wellness now. Is it enough? Do we need to do more? And really the answer is taking a look at what you're offering, and are people utilizing that, and is it the right things? As Katherine mentioned, we are looking now at more personalized approaches to things. And I know Julie's going to give us some stories about, what cancer patients need. And are we really looking at that as employers? Are we really truly looking person by person? And, again, there are HIPAA laws, so it's not as if we want to be intrusive and really go into every person and ask overly, but there are people that are willing to share their stories. There are people that are just willing to give their opinions. And I think, as employers, more so than ever, we just need to lean in and make sure we really are understanding what people want. So with that, I'll stop and let Julie comment.
Thank you, Debbie. Greetings, everyone. I've been a friend of the Crossroads for Hope and the prior organization for the last 12 years. And I'm here today as not a one-time cancer survivor, two-time, it's a three-time cancer survivor. I've had colon cancer, kidney cancer, and now I'm undergoing treatment for breast cancer. So for me, I want to let you know that I've worked during my cancer treatments, and it was very rewarding to be able to stay plugged in, do my job, and do it well. However, I didn't work full time. I asked for special accommodations, and that's how I was able to thrive during a very difficult time. I'm still an employee, still working. There have been challenges. And during the cancer journey, I have my scars inside and out. And sometimes working, it's difficult when your insurance changes. They move you from short-term disability into long-term disability with rehab or an intermittent type working status. That will change your insurance and you'll move to a new group. Well, when that happened to me, my dependents didn't move and they were discontinued. And now all of a sudden I get all these claims and they're unpaid. And nobody really, who could I go to? I had to make three-way phone calls between my company and my insurance. And I didn't really have an advocate helping me. That's one example. Another example I just want to give is that I've always been open with my manager and my coworkers about my situation and my diagnosis and my journey. However, not every associate is open and wants to discuss it. So I think there in itself lies a challenge. And it kind of goes back to that stigma. But honestly, having a great relationship with your manager is key because they care about you. They want you to be resilient and be well in the workplace. What can they do to help? So I do personally have ongoing conversations. They've always been very productive. And so I think that is key. But I also do believe there should be somebody in the company, not a nurse, that is looking for your return to work date that's been assigned to your case, but somebody in the company you can go to as your advocate that understands the short-term disability process, long-term disability process, where you are in your process, can answer any questions you have about your benefits, when they're changing, how they're changing, what it means to you, what happens to your long-term incentives, the financial aspect, your pay periods, and when you go off to long-term disability, that'll shift. So when will you get paid? All of this, you have to chase by yourself right now. So I think there's a challenge, especially when you're not well. I mean, you come back out of a chemo treatment, you're in bed. You come back out of radiation, there's burns, there's things you have to treat. The last thing you're thinking about, right, is, okay, did my paycheck go through? Like, it's too much. It's too much. So I can tell you that going through these journeys, I've taken many courses at Crossroads for Hope. And not only have I taken these programs and participated, but so has my husband, my caregiver, and my daughter. And now she's an adult. And again, I've had cancer on and off now for the last 12 years. So it's been very helpful to the whole family. And we're all looking at it with a different lens. And I think there should be something perhaps for employers so they can really understand what we're going through and how they can best help us be productive. That's all we want to be productive in the company. The other thing I do as an intermittent worker is I always have to get back up to speed. So when I come back into the work or log back in, I have to check what were the meetings, what were the minutes, what happened, what's the news, what's going on. I got to acclimate myself very quickly to then get back into my rhythm of the work. So there's a piece there folks don't think about, but you have to do it. So I would love to see a type of advocate position role created that helps associates along their journey.
Julie, thank you so much for sharing all of those components. We know that your story is far more complex than even just a couple of minutes that you're sharing. But I think that there's a lot of important points that we can draw on here. At first, I want to just acknowledge what you said up front, which is the scars on the inside and on the outside. And the inside, for me, seems to be potentially kind of these components of distress that nobody understands or talks about as a, quote, effect or side effect of cancer itself. So I'm wondering, you started to kind of draw upon how Crossroads for Hope has played a role in supporting you in that. I'm wondering if you can speak more specifically about, what have been those strategies for you to just get by, to cope, to put that one foot forward in the face of so much of these challenges along the way.
Yes, thanks. And so for what I found beneficial is being around people that understand what I'm going through. Now, everyone's cancer is different. However, when you're together, if your arm hurts because there's maybe some cording after surgery of your breast cancer lymph node removal, other people understand that because they have it or they've learned about it, whereas your family might not say, oh, mom, let me get that for you. It's too high on the shelf. I don't want you to stretch, or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's things like that. And I participate in the Tai Chi, which is awesome. We do these movements, positions, repetitive activities, and then a pose at the end. And it really centers you, calms you down, gives you sense of purpose, lowers your blood pressure. It's an amazing activity that cancer patients are taking advantage of, but really all employees could take advantage of this, caregivers, family members as well, or bosses. So there's so many programs. The support groups are great because you need a place to go where people understand what you're going through. Your family, they see things, they might tiptoe around because they don't really understand everything you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the benefit of the programs that I've participated in at Crossroads for Hope. And it could be nutrition, it could be meditation, guided meditation, or exercising. All these are specifically designed for cancer patients.
Yeah. So Julie, the other piece of what you're sharing, just loud and clear, and what I'm hearing is this need for having some kind of advocate or liaison within the structure of the workplace. So Debbie, I'm wondering if that's an area that you could cover from your perspective.
Sure. I mean, I hear what Julie's saying and agree that it's so important that somebody somebody is there for cancer patients, for anyone, honestly, going through any kind of trauma. Because you said you don't have the time, you don't have the headspace to be able to deal with it. Typically, it's the benefits person, that person who is very familiar. They are in touch. They have the contacts within the insurance company. I think the issue that we've seen in the past few years is because of the turnover, overwhelmed HR teams who have been just handling so much, which so many additional stressors in the last couple of years, that it has not gotten the focus and the traction that I think even those HR departments would like to have. So I feel like organizations like Crossroads for Hope are able to really add value and kind of supplement that. So at least to Julie's point of helping to educate so people really understand. I've had people work for me who are cancer patients. And to your point, there are so many people who are open, and there are others who they just want to go about their business. They really don't want anyone to know. They do everything they can to make sure on the surface everything looks calm and smooth waters, and that they are still doing things at work. So even then, the benefits person of the HR department may not realize what they're going through, and they may not feel comfortable saying anything until there is maybe a financial crisis. To your point, bills aren't getting paid and you're starting to reach out to HR, and then again it may be one more thing on their list where they are understaffed. And then you have to push a little bit more as the employee to say, hey, did you follow up on that? Is there something I can do? Can I call the insurance department? Again, one more layer of stress, one more action item that you didn't need added to your list. So there's no silver bullet, but I would implore, all of the HR departments just to take a look again, how you're resourcing. Are there things you can stop doing that you can do differently? Because again, I know it's adding more work is not anything that anybody can handle right now.
Yeah, well, and recognizing that this is Julie's third time around, right? So it's not the average cancer patient necessarily that gains all of this experience along the way, although there is an evolution through kind of learning how to best communicate with your loved ones and your employers and all of these other people in your life. So from a communication perspective, Julie, I'm wondering if you could just put yourself in those shoes at the beginning of all of this, at the point of disclosure, being so open and relatable with your manager. Are there certain tactics or I guess just examples of how that conversation went and what other activities per se may have occurred around disclosing your diagnosis in the workplace, and how that then translated through your success in beginning, continuing the work?
Sure, thanks. When I was diagnosed, there was conversations, of course, that you have with your physician and specialists that confirm, and there's tests and results, and you're trying to make heads or tails of it all. And then it comes to the point where you're going to need to take some time, and you're going to miss that time in the workplace. So you really need to understand, well, how much time am I missing? Because your boss needs to know how much time are you missing and what can you still do and what you can't do. And they have to figure out who's going to do the work, who's going to back you up while you're out. But meanwhile, you just need to let them know when you'll be out, the first day you'll be out, and for how long, what's the estimate. So that will come from your physician, whoever's treating you and watching over you. And, they'll probably put you out on short-term disability. And then the conversations that I wanted to have were very open. I'm an open book. I wanted to not only meet with my manager, I wanted to share it with my coworkers, and my manager agreed that during a staff meeting, at the end of the staff meeting, I could share where I am on my cancer journey, the diagnosis, whatever I wanted to share. And I felt it was very helpful because the associates who I work with every day now have a picture of what's happening to me. It's not like I just disappeared and I'm out on leave and nobody knows. And, there could be rumors. I wanted folks to know how it's going. And there could be some tears during that meeting. People will follow up with you afterwards, one-on-one, very interested to learn where you are, or they may want to share themselves where they've been on their cancer journey, which you may not even be aware of. So I think it's very important to be open and honest. I think some of the challenges occur when you move from one status to another in this process. And I agree with everything Debbie said, but I believe there's a process here. And I honestly, to make it smooth for a cancer patient, you have to understand who are now the participants of this process. Where is the associate moving through? Is it working? Because I can tell you, when I moved from short-term disability to long-term disability, it was managed by a different group, completely different company manages long-term disability. And to reach the senior claims manager, I had to call the Philippines, and then it was rerouted to Berkeley Heights, New Jersey. So I thought that was very strange. Why can't I just get on the phone and talk to Berkeley Heights, New Jersey and reach my claims manager? So there's, the process may not be as smooth as it could be. And then when the status changed, my insurance changed and they moved me and my dependents fell off the program. And I worked on this in advance. I said, let's work on it in advance because, something like this had happened before to me and let's make sure everything's okay. And they all confirmed, a three-way call, the insurance company, my company, myself, that everything was set right. But there was a feed. Every week, there's a feed that goes through out to this long-term disability company, and all the fixes they made were overridden on that weekend. And all the work we did, we had to redo months later when we figured out it didn't work. All my bills were unpaid. It was more than $250,000 worth of unpaid claims that had to get fixed. So the fix had to go back in place. We had to confirm it was fixed. Then we had to send back through all the claims. It's all like rework, and there's opportunities here. I'm telling you, for things to go smoothly and to avoid all that. It was very like gut wrenching. It's a headache. You don't feel well. As you're trying to get better and you don't need this on top of you. So that's just one example of little things along the way that we need to tighten up this process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think what you're doing from a patient perspective also is just educating this group on the many nuances and fluidity that happens along the cancer continuum, because again, going back to that definition of survivor, from the point of diagnosis through the rest of your life, there are all of these changes that occur, from shifts in treatment plans to just it could be for somebody who has an advancement in their disease, or going even from treatment back to work. All of these twists and turns and transitions occur where we know there's expected to be this increase in anxiety, fear, isolation, unknown. And on top of it, I'm feeling the distress just talking about hearing your frustration with the system. And so, yeah, I think we hear you loud and clear, Julie.
Yeah. And I just wanted to add, Katherine, that, I hear the pain and the frustration in the process, and I agree. And it comes down to, who owns it, and sometimes the employer will say, well, it's the insurance company. Look, I've done what I can. I've called them, and the patient's like, but I've called 1,000,000 times. Like, there's nothing. So again, I think it just takes the group working together between the insurance company, the employer, and the patient. And, I feel like at the end of the day, the employer needs to say, look, I'm going to help the employee through this process. Maybe I don't own it, but what can I do to influence it on behalf of the patient? And I get it. People are busy. There's not a lot of time, but to just take that extra care to maybe talk to the person, insurance, do they have that process flow? I'm sure they have one. Could we take a look at it? Does it make sense? Are there any points in the process that, this seemed that we could be fixed that are broken? It just takes somebody going the extra mile. And it helps everybody in the long run. It's going to help the employer in the long run too, because, if it's not going to be the same person, that's every time somebody goes through it, there's probably going to be a break somewhere. So let's just all understand the process. And I just find sometimes it just takes somebody to say, step up and say, I'll do it. I'll take accountability. I know none of us know who owns it. It's nobody's fault. Let's just figure it out. And, I just think we need more of that, just helping one another.
Yeah. And you're getting at this, really, what is the theme of this conversation today is how do we create a culture within the workplace that is supportive of all ends for the patient themselves and their experience along the way, and the employers and managers and coworkers and all of those who take in this information and, to Julie's point, react to knowing that a coworker is going through cancer. So I don't know if this is an appropriate space to kind of kick around any of those ideas or whatever, but an outcome might be, how might an organization like Crossroads for Hope intervene to a workplace when we know that something has happened and there needs to be this normalizing of the conversation and support around any given aspect of the cancer journey.
Mhm.
That brings me to also thinking about the impact that cancer has on a family. And in many respects, I see a parallel between the way that cancer affects family systems and how it affects working systems. Workplaces have their own rules and power structures and communication patterns. And when all of that is disrupted, workers are at risk of kind of losing out on, right, on like just the general demands of the work and how to operate on a regular basis. So I think communication is a huge piece here.
Yeah, I would agree. Just to say that when my cancer journey started and kept restarting, what I found very helpful was to have weekly meetings with the family to showcase, okay, what do we have this week? What are those, chemo treatments I need, or the radiation every day, or who's taking who, what meal is coming in. So a lot of conversations around logistics are really important, and
Right.
having the family involved gives them sense of purpose as well.
Yeah.
But they need a break at times too,
Right.
so it's understanding that, seeing it, getting ahead of it. And it's been a challenge with COVID. I mean, the pandemic, all these treatments, you're isolated. You have to push to hope a caregiver can go with you. That, hospitals didn't want to let you in. A recent surgery I had, they told me the only way we'll do the surgery, because we don't have enough beds, because we gave them the COVID, the only way we'll do the surgery is if you agree, same day surgery. And I was like, is that even possible? Oh, sure, we'll do the same day. And that's what they did. And I couldn't believe it. And I was dropped off like you would be dropped off at a shopping mall, and I was picked up. And that's how it all went down. And it was all in 15 hours. I was in and out of there, which you have to rethink everything. You have to make sure all the prescriptions that you're going to need for pain are available in advance, so that when they release you at midnight, you're not looking for a Walgreens that's open 24 hours. It's so much has changed because of the pandemic. So it's difficult at times, but not impossible.
Well, another point about your family that you were making, which I don't know that there's a solution for, which is just acknowledging that family members impacted by cancer who are caregivers are also in the workplace. And so what laws or accommodations or, handbooks are even, available to support those individuals who are also feeling the demand of cancer in different ways, but the burden is there.
Yeah, I think being a caregiver and letting your manager know, if you're working, that you are a caregiver, and by taking advantage of a flexible work schedule, or on some days working from home. I mean, everybody's trying to get back to the office. I get it, but this is a unique circumstance. Or even taking some vacation time, or if it's FMLA, knowing what to do and how best to do it so that everything can flow is very important, because otherwise the caregiver is going to burn out. And family members are also caregivers. And, are they taking off from work? Are they helping? How are they helping? What role does everyone play is very important, and working with their employers as well. I know coworkers that will not mention that they have cancer to their family. They will not disclose to their managers or family what's going on, and their kids think they're off in a business meeting when they've gone for radiation or for chemo or for surgery. So there's such a spectrum of what people will disclose and won't, that it's a challenge. But making the information available, this way they know what their options are, because what they're doing behind the scenes is they're going to call someone who went through it, ask them what they did, and they'll get information. It may or may not be pertinent to what they're going through. You know what I mean? It's there's effort going on behind the scenes, but they might not be getting all information that's important for them now.
Mhm.
That's why I feel like, though, that with Crossroads for Hope, that if an employer knew about the organization and was able to refer people, so again, or you just had something posted on a wall or on a benefits sheet, it's listed as one of the benefits, at least then, maybe I don't even need to disclose anything or go ask anyone. If I am very private about that, I can make that phone call similar to how I would do with the employee assistance program, that I could make that phone call. I could talk to people who really understand, because I think, as you said, and I personally have not been through cancer, but I can't even imagine, what I would be feeling and, how much I would want to disclose.
Mhm.
And you are concerned for your family members. You don't want to put more burden on them,
Right.
but sometimes they can feel it anyway, and you're putting the burden unknowingly. So to be able to talk to someone else who's in the same situation outside of the family confidentially, just to get another point of view, this would be a great organization to do that if you had the phone number and knew about it without having to really say anything.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's a good plug plug for us, Debbie, and totally appropriate. And I can represent the organization just to reiterate that we are here to support anyone who's impacted by cancer at any point along their journey. And that can look in like so many different ways. That direct referral is absolutely something that can happen. We have provider referral forms to help ease that process as well in a confidential way. And then, sometimes we're called on site, but, in the old days when we could go on site, but we could do things virtually. But, my hope is that we can be called in before the crisis occurs. Again, going back to normalizing these conversations, infusing some support around the patient themselves or the family member, or just the workplace in general. What does that wellness initiative look like? How could we partner so that we can have this dialogue on a regular basis, so that when a cancer diagnosis does happen, that the companies are equipped with the tools and resources and dialogue really to help their patients up front, so that it doesn't become more of a burden than it needs to be.
I also think when they come back to work, re-engaging your associate, because say you're not working intermittently, you've actually been out for quite a while and now you're coming back. What can we do to make that transition back to work smooth for this associate during the pandemic? There's so many challenges, but it's the whole journey, including return to work.
Mm-hmm.
And we're returning to work and we want to be productive. So we're looking to make sure that we can be as productive as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm. And employers need everyone. They need everybody. Look, I think full circle, come back to the beginning. We talk about the Great Resignation, and people are making choices as to what's important to them. And while work is very important, they're also recognizing, that life is short, and there are, pieces of life that they don't want to miss. So that flexibility, and so as an employer, how do you invite people back to the workplace so they feel included, that they are part of the organization, that they can contribute, and then contribute in a way that's works for them, and what that might mean. Mm-hmm. Early mornings, late nights, need the middle of the day off for whatever reason, including treatment. So I think that period in time in history to have that accommodation, now is the time to ask for it, because people, they want to keep employees. They don't want them to go elsewhere. So I feel like there is an opportunity.
And it could even include goal setting to make sure that folks, when they return to work, it's clear what their goals are, because their goals can change. Mm-hmm. They've been through something, and they may have taken now a new look on where they want to be headed within the organization. So it's important to reset, recalibrate with the associate. What are the goals that you have personally for your personal development now that you've been through that? Because they're going to change. I can tell you that. There are things they're going to be much more passionate about, and you want to leverage that. Definitely, make sure they're happy and satisfied in the position and understand what their goals are.
Yeah. This has been a very organic and robust conversation, I believe. I'm not seeing any messages in chat, although I do want to just put it out there that if anybody has questions, you could also unmute yourselves. for those who are on the phone and let us know what you're thinking, if there's anything we can answer for you.
While we're waiting for the questions, I'm just sitting, I'm sitting here. First, Julie, thank you for sharing just even a glimpse of your journey. And as I'm listening to you, the dimensions, there's just so many more dimensions that any one of us might think about in terms of what's happening with your cancer diagnosis, your treatment, and your day-to-day, just trying to live your life. So really appreciate you sharing that. And it also took me back to the Crossroads for Hope team as I'm listening to Debbie as a professional, trying to help what's the right thing for companies to do. And Crossroads for Hope really just trying to help the people in the ecosystem, each of the people in the ecosystem, and the absolute genuineness of that, and the the zeal just to get it right just comes, or get it as best we can, just comes through. And I'm just genuinely appreciative for that. And I would say to folks on the phone, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And, feel free, reach out to Crossroads for Hope. The sincere intention is just to try to help people along the journey, whomever that might be, as people are facing cancer. I'm not sure, Katherine, if questions have come in.
It looks like we have a question that when we want to contact Crossroads as an employer first, generically for ourselves, to get more information or for specifically to recommend an employee, who do we reach out to? I would say me, but I can provide my email and contact information in the chat here so that anybody can receive it. And that would be a good start.
I also assume we can follow up with an email to whomever was on this, okay, with contact information and people to contact as well. But thanks for putting that into the chat, Katherine.
Brian, do you have visibility to the chat by chance? Because I see more coming in and I want to make sure I drop this info.
So there's a question about, has Crossroads for Hope team connected with employers, coalitions such as Northeast Business Group or Health or others in the area, employer associations of New Jersey, to share the services that are available? Would be a great way to do outreach. So I'm not sure if we've actually contacted those kinds of groups. And if we haven't, maybe we can put that as a follow-up. And we're an organization that we don't charge people for their services. So that's our intention. And so we're really appreciative for folks who help us along the way so we can give those services. But because we don't charge, we do have limited resources, and we try to put them as best we can to the patients. Yeah, Chamber of Commerce in various counties is a really good example as well. I don't know if any of the, Julie, Debbie, or Katherine, if you have any other comments, just want to be cognizant of people's time as they may need to be running to a different meeting.
I do not at this time. I want to thank everyone for their attention, especially as we know these conversations can be sensitive, especially when we're shining a light on, stories such as Julie's. And so, just to reiterate what Brian had said, we're here and armed and ready to intervene at any point at which you believe the people you're working with or you yourselves and your family members could use the support.
Great.
I just want to thank everyone for being here today, and I wish you well. Listen to your body and be open about whatever happens, but I wish you well. Stay well.
Back at you, Julie.
Yeah, thank you, Julie.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate you sharing your story. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Part of this.
Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Take care. Bye-bye.